Commander Vex Nathi stared at the containment cell's display panel, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. A clear sign of confusion among his species. The human specimen they'd captured 3 cycles ago was, well, frankly speaking, not acting like a proper captive should. Status report, Lieutenant Kairos, Vex Nathi commanded, his mandibles clicking with irritation. Sir, the subject has somehow fashioned a crude hammock from the synthetic fabric we provided for comfort. He's also been collecting moisture from the air recycling vents and storing it in what appears to be hollowed-out food containers. Kairos paused, his tentacles twitching nervously. Oh, and he's been talking to himself constantly. Talking to himself? Vex Nathi's head tilted at an impossible angle. About what? Well. Kairos consulted his data pad. Yesterday he spent 2 hours explaining to an imaginary companion named Wilson how to identify edible mold. Today he's been lecturing about something called urban foraging and water purification techniques using charcoal. The commander's exoskeleton plates shifted with what could only be described as bewilderment. When the Galactic Research Consortium had assigned his vessel to collect human specimens for behavioral analysis, they'd specifically requested a typical member of the species. The scanning protocols had identified this particular human, Marcus Fletcher, as statistically average. Standard height, weight, occupation, dwelling location, nothing remarkable whatsoever. They were beginning to suspect their scanners might need recalibration. Has he shown any signs of distress or attempted escape? Vex Nathi inquired, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Negative, sir. In fact, he seems to be enjoying himself. He's been raiding our food supply system and making what he calls quality of life improvements to his cell. Kairos's voice carried an unmistakable note of disbelief. He also asked if we could provide him with a decent knife, because apparently our molecular food dispensers are inefficient for portion control. Vex Nathi felt his secondary stomach churn. No species in the known galaxy had ever requested weaponry while in captivity. It was unprecedented. Unthinkable. Absolutely contrary to every behavioral model in their databases. Show me the live feed, he ordered. The holographic display materialized, revealing Marcus Fletcher sitting cross-legged on his improvised hammock. The human was methodically braiding fibers he'd somehow extracted from his clothing into what appeared to be cordage. His lips moved constantly as he worked, engaged in animated conversation with absolutely no one. So, Wilson, Marcus was saying to empty air, the key to survival isn't having the best gear, it's making the best of what you've got. These alien boys have given us temperature control, regular meals, and clean water. Honestly? I've had worse camping trips. Vex Nathi's mandibles clicked faster. Is Wilson some sort of communication device we failed to detect? Negative, sir. Our scans show no technology. Wilson appears to be entirely fictional. The human created this entity for psychological comfort. Fascinating, Vex Nathi muttered, though his tone suggested anything but fascination. What's he doing with that cordage? On screen, Marcus had completed his braiding and was now testing the strength of his creation by pulling it taut between his hands. Not bad, Wilson. Not bad at all. With enough of this, we could rig up a proper shelter. Maybe even some snares if these purple guys have any small critters running around their ship. Snares? Kairos's translation implant worked overtime. Sir, I believe that's a primitive hunting technique. I'm aware of what snares are, Lieutenant. Vex Nathi's voice carried the edge of someone whose day was rapidly deteriorating. The question is why he's discussing hunting aboard our research vessel. Marcus stood up, stretching with obvious satisfaction. You know what, Wilson? I think it's time we did some reconnaissance. Get the lay of the land, so to speak. The human began examining the walls of his cell with methodical precision, running his fingers along every surface, tapping gently and listening to the resulting sounds. His expression was that of someone conducting a professional inspection. Sonic resonance suggests hollow spaces behind these panels, Marcus murmured conversationally. Ventilation system runs through here, temperature differential indicates airflow patterns, and this section. He pressed against a particular area of the wall. This feels like an access hatch. Vexnathi's plates rattled with alarm. That's impossible. Our containment cells are specifically designed to prevent escape attempts. The access panels are magnetically sealed and require biometric authorization. Marcus had moved on to examining the food dispenser with the focused attention of an engineer. Now this is interesting, Wilson. Molecular synthesis technology, but the housing is purely mechanical. Old-school bolts and brackets. Almost like they built the fancy tech inside a regular maintenance box. The human began systematically testing each bolt with his improvised cordage, using it as a crude wrench. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Universal constant, apparently. Sir, Kairos's voice had risen several octaves, he's actually loosening the dispenser housing. That's impossible. Those bolts are made from quantum-forged titanium composite. No primitive species should be able to. A distinct metallic clang echoed through the cell as Marcus successfully removed the first bolt. He held it up to the light, examining it with obvious satisfaction. Thanks for the quality hardware, purple guys. This'll make excellent tooling. Vexnathi's 4 eyes focused on the display with laser intensity. Pull up his background files again. Immediately. The data scrolled past on secondary screens. Marcus Fletcher, age 34, employed as an accountant for a mid-sized logistics company. Hobbies listed as camping, hiking, and something called urban exploration. Standard education, no military service, no advanced technical training. There must be an error in our records, Vexnathi insisted. No accountant should possess this level of mechanical aptitude or survival instinct. Sir, I'm cross-referencing his behavioral patterns with our xenological databases. Kairos paused, his tentacles freezing mid-gesture. Oh. Oh no. What is it? Sir, I believe we may have accidentally captured what humans classify as a survivalist. According to these records, it's a subset of their population that specifically trains for adverse conditions and resource scarcity. Vexnathi felt his exoskeleton plates lock into what his species called defensive configuration. How adverse are we talking about? The database indicates they practice skills including but not limited to improvised tool creation, shelter construction from minimal materials, water purification, hunting, foraging, escape and evasion tactics, and something called MacGyvering. MacGyvering? Creating complex solutions from simple materials, sir. Named after a legendary human figure who could apparently build explosive devices from household cleaning supplies. The commander watched in growing horror as Marcus successfully removed the second bolt and began working on the third. The human was humming tunelessly to himself, clearly enjoying the challenge. Sir, Kairos continued, his voice barely above a whisper, there's more. His personal records indicate he's completed something called wilderness survival courses, urban escape and evasion training, and has certifications in primitive technology reconstruction. You're telling me, Vexnathi said slowly, that our supposedly average human specimen is actually trained in exactly the skills necessary to survive captivity aboard an alien vessel? It appears so, sir. Marcus had now removed 3 bolts and was peering into the exposed mechanism of the food dispenser with obvious interest. Well, hello there, beautiful. Wilson, you seeing this? Full electromagnetic spectrum synthesizer with molecular manipulation arrays. But look at this power coupling design, definitely vulnerable to feedback loops if you reverse the polarity on the input manifold. Did he just identify a critical vulnerability in our food synthesis technology? Vexnathi asked weakly. I believe so, sir. Without any technical documentation or prior exposure to our technology? Correct, sir. Marcus had produced a small piece of metal, apparently fashioned from his belt buckle, and was using it to probe the internal mechanisms. The beauty of universal engineering principles, Wilson. Physics is physics, whether you're human or little green men. Well, purple men in this case. The fourth bolt came free with a satisfied grunt from Marcus. There we go. Now let's see what kind of fun we can have with a portable matter synthesizer. Vexnathi turned to his lieutenant with the expression of someone whose career was about to take a dramatic turn for the worse. Kairos? Yes, sir. Contact the Galactic Research Consortium immediately. Tell them we may have a problem. What kind of problem, sir? The kind where our harmless research specimen is currently reverse engineering our technology for purposes unknown. Vexnathi paused, watching Marcus carefully extract what appeared to be a crucial component from the dispenser. And apparently having a good time doing it. Marcus looked up at the security camera and waved cheerfully with his improvised tool. Hey there, purple guys. Thanks for the entertainment. Wilson and I are having a blast. Any chance you could send down some copper wire and maybe a basic multimeter? I've got some ideas for improvements to this place. The transmission ended with Marcus's distinctly human laughter echoing through the containment level. Vexnathi's plates had turned a pale shade of their usual color. Lieutenant? Sir? Next time we capture a human, let's make sure it's actually a typical one. Noted, sir. Should I prepare the escape protocols? Not yet. But keep them ready. 3 cycles later, Commander Vexnathi stood before an emergency assembly of his senior staff, his exoskeleton plates displaying the modeled pattern that indicated severe stress among his species. The situation had escalated far beyond anything their protocols could handle. Gentlemen, he began, his mandibles clicking in rapid-fire bursts, I'll cut straight to the point. Our human specimen has turned his containment cell into what can only be described as a workshop. Science Officer Tilmora's eye stalks swiveled nervously. Sir, surely you're exaggerating. It's been less than a standard week. Lieutenant Kairos, show them the footage. The holographic display materialized, revealing Marcus Fletcher's cell. What had once been a sterile containment environment now resembled something between a primitive laboratory and a cozy living space. Improvised shelving lined the walls, constructed from dismantled food dispenser components. A complex water collection and filtration system occupied one corner, complete with what appeared to be a solar still made from transparent wall panels. Sweet merciful void, whispered Engineer Keftal. How did he remove load-bearing wall sections without triggering structural alerts? That's not even the impressive part, Vexnathi replied grimly. Show them what he built yesterday. The display shifted to show Marcus hunched over a workbench, carefully assembling what looked suspiciously like a communication device. Various components from throughout his cell had been repurposed, wire from the lighting system, processors from the environmental controls, and metal casings that had once housed security sensors. Wilson, I think we've got it, Marcus was saying to his invisible companion. Basic radio transmitter, nothing fancy, but it should be able to tap into their communication frequencies. These purple guys use standard electromagnetic spectrum broadcasting. Old school, but effective. Tilmora's eye stalks drooped. He's constructed a functioning transmitter from scavenged materials. It gets worse, Kairos interjected. Show them this morning's incident. The timestamp shifted to just a few hours earlier. Marcus was now wearing what appeared to be improvised body armor fashioned from cell wall panels and held together with his handmade cordage. He'd also created a helmet from the food dispenser's outer casing, complete with a makeshift heads-up display using reflective surfaces. All right Wilson, time for the grand tour, Marcus announced, approaching the cell door with a device that looked disturbingly like a lockpicking tool. I've mapped their patrol schedules, identified the security frequencies, and I'm pretty sure I know where they keep the good stuff. The good stuff? Keftal asked weakly. Their armory, apparently, Vexnathi replied. He's been monitoring our internal communications for 2 cycles. The assembled officers watched in fascinated horror as Marcus inserted his improvised tool into the door mechanism. Within moments, the supposedly impregnable barrier slid open with a soft hiss. And that, gentlemen, is when things got really interesting. Marcus stepped into the corridor, immediately pressing himself against the wall in what their military databases identified as tactical movement. He moved with the fluid confidence of someone who'd spent considerable time practicing stealth techniques. Motion sensors show he avoided every patrol for the next 3 hours, Kairos reported. He accessed 17 different sections of the ship, including areas that should have been impossible for him to reach. What was he looking for? Tilmora asked, though his tone suggested he really didn't want to know. Intelligence gathering, mostly. He spent considerable time in our navigation section, somehow accessed our star charts, and downloaded what appears to be our complete database of human colonial settlements. Downloaded? How? Thumb drive, Vexnathy said flatly. He built a functional data storage device from spare electronics and used it to copy our files. Apparently, humans call this backing up important information. The display now showed Marcus in the ship's hydroponics bay, examining their food production systems with obvious interest. "Well, hello, beautiful," he murmured, running his hands over the growing equipment. "Wilson, look at this setup. Automated nutrient delivery, controlled atmosphere, perfect growing conditions. We could definitely work with this." "Work with it how?" Engineer Keftal inquired nervously. "He's been modifying our food production algorithms," Kairos explained. Apparently, our nutritional profiles for humans were grossly inadequate according to his assessment. He's reprogrammed the system to grow what he calls proper survival crops. Such as potatoes, beans, something called kale, and various medicinal herbs. He also added several plants that our databases classify as mildly toxic to most species but apparently edible to humans with proper preparation. Vexnathy gestured to the display, which now showed Marcus in what was clearly their weapons storage facility. And here's where our situation became truly problematic. Marcus stood before a rack of plasma rifles, examining them with the focused attention of a professional. "Interesting design philosophy, Wilson. Energy-based weapons, probably drawing power from the ship's main reactor. But look at this targeting system, completely over-engineered. All these bells and whistles when a simple point-and-shoot interface would be more reliable." "He's not stealing them," Tilmora observed with surprise. "No," Vexnathy agreed grimly. "He's improving them." The footage showed Marcus carefully disassembling one of their standard-issue sidearms, studying each component before making subtle modifications. "Basic principles of weapon design, Wilson. Reliability, accuracy, and ease of maintenance. These purple guys have focused too much on fancy technology and not enough on practical application." "Sir," Keftal interrupted, "are you telling us he's upgrading our weapons? Enhanced targeting accuracy by 47%, improved power efficiency by 32%, and reduced maintenance requirements by half," Kairos read from his data pad. "He also left instruction manuals written in our language." "He knows our language?" "Learned it by monitoring our communications and cross-referencing with our computer databases. Took him approximately 18 hours to achieve basic fluency." The display shifted again, showing Marcus back in his cell, now significantly more comfortable than when he'd arrived. He'd installed proper lighting, improved ventilation, and created what appeared to be a small library using printed copies of their technical manuals. "The most disturbing part," Vexnathy continued, "is that he's left everything accessible. The cell door remains unlocked, he's made no attempt to damage our systems permanently, and he's actually improved several ship functions during his nocturnal wanderings." "Improved how?" Tilmora asked. "Reactor efficiency is up 12%. Life support systems are running more smoothly than they have in cycles. And somehow, he's eliminated that annoying vibration in the artificial gravity generators that engineering has been trying to fix for months." He fixed our gravity generators? Apparently, it was just a matter of proper calibration and regular maintenance, Keftal admitted sheepishly. He left a detailed maintenance schedule and repair manual. Marcus was now visible on the display, sitting comfortably in his improvised chair and speaking cheerfully to Wilson. You know, Wilson, I've got to hand it to these alien guys. Once you get past the whole kidnapping thing, they run a pretty decent operation. Sure, there's room for improvement, but the basic infrastructure is solid. Sir, Kairos interrupted, we're receiving an incoming transmission from the Galactic Research Consortium. Put it through. The holographic display shifted to show High Administrator Zefkala, her tentacles writhing with obvious agitation. Commander Vex Nathi, we've been reviewing your reports with considerable concern. Are you seriously telling us that your human specimen has essentially taken voluntary control of your research vessel? Well, I wouldn't say control exactly, Vex Nathi replied carefully. It's more like he's become an extremely helpful consultant who happens to be living in our brig. A consultant who can access any area of your ship at will? He does seem to respect boundaries. He's never entered crew quarters or sensitive command areas without permission. Permission? He's been leaving notes asking for access to specific areas, along with detailed explanations of why he needs to examine particular systems. Very polite, actually. High Administrator Zefkala's tentacles had turned a deep shade of purple, indicating extreme displeasure. Commander, you were tasked with studying typical human behavior patterns. Instead, you appear to have adopted a human crew member. Sir, in our defense, our original scanning protocols may have been inadequate for identifying human subspecialties. This particular specimen represents what humans call a prepper or survivalist. They're apparently a subset of the population specifically trained for exactly this type of scenario. What type of scenario? Being abducted by technologically superior aliens and adapting to their environment while gathering intelligence for eventual escape or rescue operations. The silence on the communication channel stretched for several long moments. You're telling us, High Administrator Zefkala finally said, that humans have a subspecies that specifically trains for alien abduction? Among other survival scenarios, yes. And you accidentally captured one of them? It appears so. Marcus chose that moment to wave cheerfully at the communication console's camera. Hey there, tentacle lady. Marcus Fletcher, pleased to meet you. Wilson and I were just discussing your ship design philosophy. Really solid work, though I've got some suggestions for improvements if you're interested. High Administrator Zefkala stared at the display for a full 30 seconds before responding. Commander Vex Nathi? Yes, sir. Release the human immediately and escort him back to his homeworld with our sincere apologies. Sir. And Commander? Yes, sir. Next time we need human specimens, we're using professional xenological capture teams. Not random selection protocols. Understood, sir. Marcus grinned at the camera and gave a thumbs up. Thanks for the hospitality, folks. This has been educational for everyone involved. Wilson says goodbye too. The transmission ended with the sound of distinctly human laughter echoing through the bridge. Well, Vex Nathi said to his assembled staff, anyone know how to properly apologize to a species we've accidentally underestimated? I believe the humans have a saying about that, sir, Kairos offered helpfully. Something about never poking a sleeping bear. Noted, Lieutenant. Noted.